One of the best properties we encounter time and time again is going to be the distributive property. Distributive property is fairly basic. What it basically says is when you have a quantity multiplied by another quantity that is grouped by parentheses and those terms are separated by addition and subtraction, then that quantity outside the parentheses needs to multiply to each and every term that is inside the parentheses. So you can see here we have A times B plus C, right? B plus C are separated by addition. So therefore, my A, which is again multiplied by the sum of B plus C, needs to be multiplied by B as well as by C. Now, this understanding of distributive property can also be applied when we're not only multiplying by monomial, but also binomials and trinomials. Now, I know that kind of looks like crazy. There's a lot of numbers right there. The really just important to understand here is we have this quantity that is separated by addition multiplied by another quantity that are separated by addition. Each and every one of these terms, like for my y, for instance, needs to multiply by every term inside this parentheses. I need to also do with the x. Sometimes I like to summarize this to my students. Everything needs to be multiplied by everything. We're not going to do this for terms that are separated by multiplication or division. That's a very common mistake that students do. Why is distributive property so important, and how can this understanding help us understand and complete problems quicker and faster? Now, the first example is actually going to be one where we're going to do the distributive property in reverse, right? Because if I have 3x plus 15, and you might be familiar with factoring, you can understand that both the 3x and the 15 can be divided by a 3. So if I divide out a 3 or I factor out the 3, I can be left with a 3 times a x plus 5. Now again, this is equivalent to this only because our understanding of the distributive property. See, if I had to multiply this back out, I would understand by the distributive property this 3 would need to be multiplied by the x, and this 3 would be multiplied by the 5, therefore giving me a 3x plus 15. So the distributive property works in both ways. We can use it to expand or multiply an expression, and we can also use it to understand to factor or to rewrite an expression as a product. Now, the other way using the distributive property is going to be very helpful is when we want to multiply polynomials, especially like binomials or trinomials. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, we could also use the distributive property to help us understand multiplying numbers, but I think sometimes that's confusing and there are faster ways to be able to do that. But for the conceptual understanding, using the distributive property is very helpful. Because in this case, I could use this, but you might see there's a lot of lines going on. Sometimes we think about this as the box method or FOIL, but in reality, all we're simply doing is just applying the distributive property. X needs to be multiplied by x, 2 needs to be multiplied by 5. 2 needs to be multiplied by an x, and an x needs to be multiplied by 5. It's a FOIL face, by the way. So anyways, now if I just go ahead and complete this out, I have x times x, which is an x squared, 2 times 5, which is going to give me a positive 10, 2 times x is going to give me a 2x, and a 5 times x is going to give me a 5x, and therefore I get a final answer of x squared plus 7x plus 10. Now, when multiplying and simplifying this answer, I've actually applied a couple different additional properties that I need to cover with you in the next video. Remember, distributive property means to distribute, right? Don't forget that. All right, now into the next video.